This boy claimed he remembered his past life until his parents discovered he wasn't lying. A Syrian boy named Arius was born with a particular red birthmark on his face. As soon as he could speak, he explained to his parents that he had already lived another life as a different man, claiming he was actually murdered with an axe by his own neighbor. Turns out, a man had actually gone missing in their village years earlier, and the neighbor was the prime suspect. So Arius and his parents went to the neighbor's house to find out the truth. When the neighbor opened the door, he turned white as a ghost, claiming he was innocent. But Arius demanded the neighbor come with him, because he knew where his body was actually buried. Arius led them miles from the village to a specific spot under a tree, and they began digging. They found a skull that was cracked exactly where Arius's birthmark was. Everyone was shocked, and the neighbor was later arrested.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. A mother named Heather Pingle died after saving her 4-year-old son from a pit bull. During the fight, she was able to wrap a cord around the dog and strangle it, but not before losing both of her arms and a significant amount of blood. In 1992, a 79-year-old woman purchased a McDonald's coffee, but accidentally spilled it on her lap and suffered third-degree burns. She ended up suing the company, arguing the temperature was far too high, and ended up winning $3 million. This video shows the last living polio survivor from the 1950s, Paul Alexander. He still uses his iron lung all day, every day. There are spiders that capture bats and large birds and eat their living bodies. Llama spit is actually projectile vomit. Being the second most fragile organ in your body, a single punch can completely rupture your liver. A study conducted over several years found that the TSA failed to catch 95% of guns, drugs, and other illegal paraphernalia going through airports.
This is the scary truth about iPhones. iPhones actually listen to everything that you say. And it's pretty creepy. This is why if you're ever talking about something with your friends, then suddenly whatever you were talking about comes up on your timeline hours later, well, that's because your iPhone is listening to you. Next, your iPhone tracks you everywhere you go. This is how the iPhone knows how long it takes to get to places from where you are. If you want proof, go to your settings and then hit privacy, then click location services at the top, and it will most likely say on. It's pretty creepy that they can hear and track everything we do, and I mean everything, because who doesn't have their phone on them nowadays?
This 12-year-old made a murder pact with someone she met online. This is 12-year-old Emma Brown, and she had plotted to kill her entire family and pets. She made this murder pact with another 12-year-old girl from Lufkin, Texas. The plan was that after the killings, Emma was going to drive to pick up the other 12-year-old, and they were going to drive to Georgia together. On September 20th of 2022, Emma has shot her father in the abdomen at their home in Poolville, Texas, which is about 30 miles from Fort Worth. Emma was about to take the family car when she ended up shooting herself in the head, and she died in the hospital 2 days later. Emma's father was released from the hospital, and he has made a full recovery. The District Attorney Office has confirmed that the second girl, who has not been identified, has been charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
Actually, Moore isn't a bush baby. That's a bush baby, but since you mentioned it, here's what Madagascar would look like if all the lemurs were scientifically accurate. Moore is a mouse lemur and the smallest of them all, and at 1.1 ounces, most of them ain't even in the weight class of a pencil. Not to mention they have the smallest brain of any primate, weighing about a paperclip. Yes, a paperclip. I defy the metric system, and that's on America. Maurice is an ii. As you can see, they took creative liberties with him, mostly because if they didn't, he'd be flipping off the entire cast for the whole runtime. Iis use that middle finger to scoop out grubs and secure extra protein. It also makes it one of the few animals on the planet able to give itself a COVID test. Also, according to urban legend, if an ii flipped you off, you'd be at God's door the next business day like an afterlife Amazon package. Yeah, his design was for the best. King Julian is a ringtail. Heavy quotes on the king, because ringtails are female dominated, where lady lemurs will flex on males any chance they get. As in, they'll dominate them, straight up snatch food from males just for the feminism of it all. So that's either a false king or a drag queen. Also, they smell so offensive they deadass weaponize it. And yeah, that's a pun, because that's exactly what they smell like. They'll really throw a stink bomb if they feel another lemur's in their business. The more you know. Also, Fusa are real.
Dirty facts about history that school probably didn't teach you. The Mayans made such horrible tasting alcohol that it was extremely common for people to just inject it into their butt so they didn't have to drink it. And guys, let me tell you, butt chugging gets you drunk fast. I mean, just look how happy this guy is. In 17th century Europe, it was extremely common for nannies to give young boys a handy to help them fall asleep at bedtime. Mary Poppins could have been a totally different movie. Ibrahim the Mad of the Ottoman Empire was obsessed with the genitals of a particular cow. So much so that he had a cast made of them in gold that he traveled with in hopes of finding a woman that matched. Eventually though, he did find his Cinderella, which was a 350-pound woman that he nicknamed Sugar Cube. Confessional booths were built by the church not for privacy, but to prevent priests from trying to have sex with the women who confessed their sins. In the Elizabethan era, the word nothing was slang for vagina, coming from the idea that women had no thing between their legs. Therefore, Shakespeare's play Much Ado About Nothing is actually very much ado about fucking.
When we talk about people that got done the absolute dirtiest in history, we gotta talk about Lindy Chamberlain Creighton. You might not know the name, but you definitely know these 4 words. Dingo ate my baby. Nah, cause let's actually talk about how messed up this was. So this family goes to Ayers Rock with their 9-week-old Azaria. Then Azaria disappeared with parents Lindy and Michael obviously reporting it, with Lindy saying that a dingo had dragged her out of the tent. That's a dingo, by the way. Officials searched for her, and the only trace of her they could find was a bloody jumpsuit, which would make sense cause, you know, dingo. Which the coroner originally agreed with, but here's where the story of a baby getting buried by dogs somehow gets darker. A different coroner was involved, and they said that someone had purposely cut up the jumpsuit after they, life retired Azaria, which I thought they settled because, dingo. Courts ended up finding Lindy guilty in the very first degree of Casey Anthonying her own daughter and then trying to stage it as a dingo attack. And the courts were on one because one of the pieces of evidence was blood in her car that ended up not even being blood. Trial basically got the TMZ treatment, and public opinion had convicted her before she even got to court. They even tried saying she was guilty because she didn't grieve enough. Like you don't look sad enough, so you definitely murked your baby, right? So Lindy got life in prison and Michael was charged as an accessory. Even had to give birth in prison. Except 4 years later, some dude fell to his finale, and while looking for him, they found Azaria's missing jacket right by a den of, I don't even need to say it. Really long story short, but Lindy ended up being exonerated, but Dingo Ate My Baby would get memed to death. So imagine your baby gets turned into a chew toy, people blame you for it, they say you're guilty because you're not sad enough. Whole time Dingo really did eat your baby, just for it all to end up being a punchline. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a peaceful person, but I'd have to turn Joker. Like, ain't no way, I'm getting my restitution. Dingo got the O.J. Simpson stimulus package, bro got off scot-free.
These are the most disturbing torture devices I saw at the Torture Museum in Amsterdam. This device is called the Iron Maiden of Nuremberg, a torture and execution machine hidden in the dungeons of medieval castles. And when I first saw it, I was stunned. Not only because of how huge it is, I'm 5'7", so you can kind of compare for size here, but with the face at the top, it just looks so eerie. And this was all before I found out how it was actually used to torture people. So the interior of this solid iron machine is covered in spikes that aren't designed to instantly kill the person trapped inside, but to prolong pain as much as possible by piercing through non-fatal areas like the eyes and down there. Because of course, why wouldn't it? And just imagine being kept in the Iron Maiden for days like that, completely isolated in the dark and unable to move. There were so many messed up torture devices I saw, so make sure to follow as I explain all their backstories.
The Alphabet Murders are a series of unsolved child murders that happened from 1971 to 1973 in New York. And this case is really bizarre. So each of the victims of the Alphabet Murders' last names and first names started with the same letters. And they were all girls aged 10 or 11. Each girl was SA'd before they were killed and then was murdered by either manual or ligature strangulation. So the first victim was Carmen Colon. Witnesses on the night that she died saw her running from a car on the interstate. She was frantically waving her arms and had nothing on from the waist down. She was later found in a gully. And to this day, nobody knows who killed her. After this happened though, these billboards were erected all over Rochester, New York, basically begging for anybody to come forward with information about what had happened. But nobody ever came forward. Then about 2 years later, Wanda Walkowicz, an 11-year-old, disappeared and was murdered in the same way, followed by the murder of Michelle Mainza 7 months later, and once again she was killed in the exact same manner. There's only been really one composite sketch made of the suspected criminal behind these murders, and this is it. He was a white Caucasian male between the ages of 25 and 35 with dark hair, approximately 6 foot tall, and he was seen with one of the victims before she went missing and was found murdered. This rabbit hole goes really deep, and there are even people that are suspected to be the Alphabet murderer and even other potential victims. So if you want me to talk more about this case, let me know and I'll make a part 2.
This woman killed her roommate over a phone charger. 26-year-old Monica Anderson was living with Lan Lee. Lan was 20 and the two women had been introduced through mutual friends. They'd been roommates in Sacramento for around 6 months. Now, Lan had a troubled upbringing and had struggled with addiction to substances. She'd actually been living in a group home for young women but wasn't able to stay once she turned a certain age. She met Monica just after turning 18. On the 13th of March 2010, the pair were drinking alcohol and taking substances. At around 2:30 a.m, they began arguing over a phone charger. Monica, sensing that things were escalating to a dangerous level, tried to run away. Terrifyingly, Lan chased her out of the apartment with a butcher's knife. Lan launched into a vicious attack, stabbing her 91 times. She then tried to stab herself and a friend stopped her. Police raced to the scene and arrested Lan. At the trial, prosecutors stated that Lan murdered Monica over pettiness and ridiculousness. They also played the jurors a video of Lan being questioned by police. In the video, Lan admits that she was simply angry at Monica for not giving her a phone charger. Interestingly, it wasn't the first time that things had got violent between the pair of them. Months prior, Monica actually told her parents that Lan had attacked her and given her a black eye. Lan was found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to 25 years to life.
This disturbing story that I'm about to explain might make you never use Tinder ever again. In November 2017, the woman you see right here, whose name is Cindy Loof, was swiping aimlessly on Tinder until she matched with a woman named Audrey. The two agreed to meet on their first date on the night of November 14th. Everything was perfect, and Sydney even took this picture before she went on the date, saying, "Ready for my date." On their date, they shared life stories and a bunch of laughs. But things took a turn for the worse at the second date when Audrey asked Sydney to go into her apartment. And as a result, Sydney never returned home. Sydney's family knew something was wrong when she didn't text them for 4 days and her pet cat wasn't fed. So as a result of all this happening, they immediately called the police. Unfortunately, a couple days later, Sydney Loof's body was found. Her body was brought to the morgue in 6 different garbage bags because she had been cut into 14 pieces while a part of her upper left arm was never found. After police investigation, the police found it very odd that 51-year-old Aubrey Trail and 25-year-old Bailey Boswell posted videos on Facebook claiming their innocence when the police were never even questioning them. It turns out that this couple is using the pseudonym Audrey on Tinder to lure Sydney into their apartment and recruit her into a cult. And the only reason Aubrey Trail dismembered Sydney's body and removed her organs was because he panicked after she accidentally passed out during a sexual fantasy. Aubrey Trail was convicted of first-degree murder and Bailey Boswell was facing first-degree murder. And this picture right here is the last known image of Sydney Loof before she was brutally murdered by her Tinder date. Or in this case, she thought it was her Tinder date. All in all, this case is extremely disturbing, and rest in peace to Sydney Loof. It also goes to show that you have to be careful when you go on dates with strangers. You never truly know who somebody really is in this disturbing world.
Good morning. A judge has ruled that Donald Trump can be prosecuted for his alleged crimes committed on January 6th. Trump was trying to prove that the president has absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for anything he does while he's in office. And a judge has now said, of course, that's not true. No matter what office you hold or who you are, you'll be held accountable for any potential criminal activity. You're at least entitled to a trial to prove your innocence.
Wow. I didn't know that. You're telling me now for the first time.
Now he's going to appeal this to the Supreme Court, but we should have a decision pretty soon that clarifies that the president is not immune from criminal prosecution if he commits crimes while in office. But speaking of things that elderly men from New York didn't know were illegal, you can't paint squirrels red and release them into the wild. A man in New York was just recently caught red-handed trapping squirrels in his yard, spray painting them red, and then releasing them at a park nearby. He says he did this because he wanted to see which squirrels were making it back into his yard. He has been arrested and charged with animal cruelty, illegal trapping, illegal releasing. But apparently trapping and painting squirrels is a bigger problem than we would have ever thought, because a lot of people on the radio were calling in this morning to say they do it or men in their family have done it. I'm going to be driving to Penn State for the next couple hours, so please leave your thoughts on the Trump verdict and on the red squirrels. I'd love to read them when I get there.
A 16-year-old has been killed after an argument over McDonald's sweet and sour sauce. On the 27th of August, police responded to a call of a 16-year-old girl being treated in hospital for stab wounds. The teenager, Naima Ligon from Maryland, then sadly passed away from her injuries. It's believed that the fatal stabbing took place outside of a McDonald's in Washington, D.C. A detective announced that the stabbing occurred after a dispute over sweet and sour sauce between 3 girls outside of the restaurant. It's believed that they were all part of a group that had been to a party previously. Naima and another girl had apparently been assaulting the other teenager first, and she didn't appear to fight back. However, when the pair tried to get into a vehicle, it's believed that the other girl came at Naima with a knife. The girl was charged with second-degree murder, and they have found the murder weapon.
Morbid Facts, Part 127. The well-endowed man behind this iconic image is none other than Wardy Joubert III. He was a football coach and preacher who sadly died in 2016 at the age of 45 from a heart attack. Legendary Spanish artist Pablo Picasso used to carry around a revolver that was loaded with blanks. And when people asked about the meaning of his paintings, he would pretend to shoot them in the face. In 1961, son of U.S. Vice President Nelson Rockefeller went missing during an expedition in Papua New Guinea. Although he was legally declared dead in 1964, some say this was him as part of a cannibalistic tribe in 1969. In 1967, Soviet cosmonaut Vladimir Komarov became the first person to die in space. His craft had over 200 known flaws, but his attempts to delay the launch were rejected. Certain that he would die, Vladimir specifically asked the authorities to give him an open casket funeral after the mission.
This is the class photo, one of the most disturbing and shocking photos of all time explained. Okay, so at first glance, this photo looks like an ordinary American high school class photo, right? That is true until you realize that the 2 boys in the upper left-hand corner shooting imaginary guns at the camera is none other than Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. A few weeks after this photo was taken at Columbine High School in 1999, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold put an evil plan that they'd been working on for more than a year into action. The 2 seniors placed 2 bombs in the cafeteria as well as in their cars, which were parked in the school's lot. These bombs failed to detonate, but the 2 boys proceeded to shoot and kill 12 students and 1 teacher. They shot and injured a further 21 people, while 3 others were injured trying to escape the massacre. Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold then committed suicide in the school library. It was revealed afterwards that the shooters hoped that their planned massacre would claim more lives than the Oklahoma City bombing, which took the lives of 168 people. This is one of the most famous and one of the worst school shootings of all time, and it's crazy that Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold foreshadowed what they were doing in this class photo. Now when I look at this photo again, all I see is a bunch of seniors in high school ready to graduate. But Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold are ready to take as many lives as humanly possible, waiting to follow through with a plan that they've been working on for over a year.
I attacked him viciously, and I didn't stop. The only time I paused was to go to the kitchen and retrieve a butcher knife, because I was going to kill him. My son stepped in front of me and saved his life. He just looked at me and said, "Sir." He shook his head and said, "No." And I just put the knife down. I just wouldn't traumatize him any more than he already was.
Hold on, y'all. So I just seen a trailer of this woman right here. I don't know if you know who this woman is, but she is the monster who took Selena from us. Selena, the singer. Now they saying that she could be released as early as 2025, which is just next year. So I'm like, hold on. They gonna let her out after she unalived one of the best up-and-coming, basically, musicians in the 90s? Girl, I'm pissed. And then she's saying she's trying to tell her side of the story. Girl, what do you mean? What do you mean? Wow, there's no explaining, there's no telling, girl. We know enough. We know you were jealous of Selena, and you cold-bloodedly premeditated and took the life of Selena, knowing she was more successful than you. and trying to take her money too. I can't believe this woman did what she did, y'all. Man, I can't believe they letting her out in 2025. Because, girl, she ain't gonna like it out here. She ain't gonna like it out here.
Hey guys, this is an update on a story I did not long ago regarding a missing girl from Washington. A 14-year-old girl from Washington named Ella Jones has been found after she was missing for nearly a month. She was found hundreds of miles away from her home in Michigan today on February 1st, Thursday. Investigators were able to track the suspect down that she was with, who was also a SEX offender, by tracking rideshare services. They were able to check local rideshare history after they found out Ella might have left her home with a rideshare vehicle on January 5th, which is the night she disappeared. It was stated Mount Vernon, which is where she's from, has limited rideshare services, so that's how they were able to easily track down which vehicle she took. They were able to identify the suspect, which was 30-year-old Keith Freakson. That is because he ordered the rideshare vehicle for Ella and his address was in South Haven, Michigan. Police said there's enough probable cause to charge him with second-degree kidnapping in Washington because he transported Ella across state lines. He also faces charges of first-degree sexual assault, failure to register as an SEX offender, and contributing to the delinquency of children, and that's in Michigan, so he faces charges in 2 different states. Reportedly, her mother knew that she had been communicating with an older man on social media before her disappearance, and some of her friends confirmed she talked about that. Washington detectives contacted the local sheriff's office where Keith is from in Michigan, and they went to his property and took him into custody. It was stated the girl's parents were elated with this news, and I can imagine because so many stories of abductions and kidnappings do not go this way. Police are continuing to investigate this case.
A group of psychologists studied 400 different movies to find the most realistic psychopath. And the winner was Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. They said that he appears to be effectively invulnerable to any form of humanity or emotion. Popular characters Hannibal Lecter and Patrick Bateman didn't even make the top 25. The actor who played Danny in The Shining didn't know it was a horror movie until after he was done with filming. He was led to believe that he was just filming a drama movie about a family that lives in a hotel. This was the original design for Voldemort, which many find far more terrifying than what they went with. The woman who voiced the demon Pazuzu in The Exorcist had a son who killed his entire family. He then proceeded to shoot himself in both temples simultaneously, and he did all of this while wearing a Freddy Krueger mask. While filming Poltergeist, the clown doll nearly killed Robbie Freeling when an animatronic error caused its arm to tighten around his neck. When the actor started gesturing that he couldn't breathe, Steven Spielberg thought he was just improv acting.
Dirty diapers, lots of dirty diapers. Baby bottles with maggots in them. Right. It was bad. It was really dark. Very hot.
A lot of wax built up in her ears so that we couldn't see her eardrums. She had a hard time keeping her body upright. She had to be supported.
Erica Murray is a 31-year-old woman who lived in a quaint suburban area in a Cape Cod-style home just 4 blocks away from the local police station. Erica's house seemed like every other house on the street, but what went on behind closed doors was so horrifying that it would chill the bones of even the most hardened detectives. Let's take a look at the case of the mom who left 2 of her babies and dog to
He's been at our house all day, and I just left to go to Bellingham, and he called me and said, I can't get the babies to stop crying. Well, there's kids here. There's like little babies here. We've been here all day. There's no one here. Okay, and there's no electricity. There's dirty diapers.
Erica Murray was born in Northbridge, Massachusetts, to middle-class parents Kevin and Sharon Murray. She was a happy-go-lucky kid who was loved by her parents and properly provided for. In the summers, Erica would play baseball with her 2 older brothers and soak the heat away in a neighbor's pool. Her parents would even take them to the beach when it got too hot, and they would also enjoy barbecues in the backyard. When Erica was a teenager, she began to care about her looks, always wanting to have her hair done and spent time caring for her nails. All this cost money, so Erica went to work at the local McDonald's to get a little extra money for herself. There, Erica met Raymond Rivera. Raymond was 7 years older than Erica, but something about him pulled Erica in. Almost as soon as they started dating, something began.
The nurse placed a sick baby next to her twin too.